The actual story of The Conjuring is about the Perron family and Enfield haunting, which in reality is scarier than the movie itself. When The Conjuring released in 2013, most viewers assumed that the movie was nothing but the wild imaginings of the director. However, the true story of The Conjuring is actually rooted in a horrifying and true experience of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed Warren was a World War II veteran and a former police officer who became a self-professed demonologist after studying the subject on his own. He developed interest in this field since he grew up in a haunted house himself. His wife, Lorraine, who claimed to be a clairvoyant, who was also capable of communicating with the demons. Together in 1952, they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research and quickly gained notoriety as paranormal investigators. Their most famous case, however, was heavily popularized by the Conjuring franchise, a series of movies that focuses on Ed and Lorraine's experiences exorcising demons from possessed families. The Warrens claimed that all the events depicted in this movie are actually transpired. Though Ed died in 2006, Lauren was a consultant on the film and claims that she did not let the directors take any more dramatic license than was necessary. Nevertheless, the true story of The Conjuring remains almost unbelievably chilling to this day. Lauren herself confessed on record that it was their most dangerous case and it was something which they haven't experienced ever.
Standing behind you.
It all began in year 1971 when Roger and Carolyn Perron, along with their 5 daughters April, Cindy, Kristen, Nancy, and Andrea, moved into their new 200-acre dream house located in Harrisville, Rhode Island, USA, and began to notice strange things happening almost immediately after they moved in. On the day they moved in, the seller of the house gave them an advice, and his exact words were, "For the sake of your family, leave the lights on at night." However, the parents did not pay too much heed to this. As time moved forward, several mysterious and unexplainable strange things started happening inside their house. It started small. Carolyn would notice that the broom went missing or seemed to move from place to place on its own, scraping sounds against the kettle when no one was in the kitchen. Small piles of dirt at the center of kitchen floor, even though it had been thoroughly cleaned a few hours before. The girls also began to notice spirits around the house. Though for the most part they were harmless, however, they were unaware there was the one who was very angry and violent.
When my mother found the farm. And we arrived in the middle of a snowstorm. We were just moving into a charming, lovely, old house, as far as all of us were concerned.
Nancy and I were sharing a room, Andrea had her room, and Cindy and April would share a room. And it was boom, boom, boom. It was pretty much everything was the same way, but it was going to move to this big new house with this really great big yard.
Initially, children claimed that ghosts acted as babysitters and were friendly spirits, as some nights the ghosts would even tuck them in and kiss their foreheads. Cindy Perron came on record and said that for the first 2 months of moving into the house, they felt the presence of a ghost woman that came and kissed her every night on the forehead. At first, she thought it was her mother, but something was off. As she put it, that mom smelled like ivory soap, but this spirit smelled like flowers and fruits. But this friendly bond did not last for long. The parent girls claimed that they were attacked in the barn by unseen entities. And then one evening, series of voices began to speak to them about the bodies of 4 dead soldiers buried in the wall. What happened after that is shocking and unbelievable. According to Andrea, the family experienced the constant smell of rotting flesh in wee hours at sharp 5:15 in the morning and would cause beds to rise off the floor. She claims her father would enter the basement and feel a cold, stinking presence behind him. Andrea claims that around this time that the girls were visited by a male ghost that tortured them so badly that she refuses to give any concrete details. There was a very bad male spirit in the home with 5 little girls. The mother, Carolyn Perron, seems to have been the most sensitive to the spirits inhabiting the home. She claimed that she knew something was wrong when a woman in grey with rope marks in her neck appeared next to her bed, moaning, get out, I'll drive you out with death and gloom." In order to understand these shocking and unlikely experiences, Carolyn allegedly began digging up the history of the place. In her research, she claimed that she came across information about how the property was once owned by the same family for 8 generations, with many of the members dying under mysterious or horrible circumstances.
Setting out to explain the truth behind the myth.
The land itself holds memory.
Because truth is scarier than fiction. Prepare yourself for the story.
To your family. We never seen nothing like this.
The property had been host to 2 suicides by hanging, 1 suicide by poison, the rape and murder of 11-year-old, 2 drownings, and the passing of 4 men who froze to death. Soon enough, the benevolent spirits were replaced with a more violent and visible force. By far, the most sinister and harmful spirit was a woman named Bathsheba Sherman.
Open out of nowhere, out of absolute nowhere, wham, bam, up against the sides of the walls, and everybody would be just in total shock, and we'd be, okay, who did that?
No one was thinking in terms of, oh, the house is haunted and it's freaking the animals out. None of us had even conceptualized the possibility of this, including my parents.
She hung herself in the barn.
There are things that happen in that house that I won't ever tell anybody. Nobody, not my family, not my sisters, not my parents, not my best friends, not anybody.
She was responsible for glass suddenly shattering and objects inexplicably launched across the room, smashing dangerously into the walls. This spirit seemed to be particularly furious at the presence of Carolyn Perron. One night, as Carolyn sat in the living room, she suddenly felt a piercing pain in her leg. Looking down, she saw blood trickling from a small stab wound in her calf that looked as if it had been caused by a large needle. The spirit perceived herself to be the mistress of the house, and she resented the competition posed by Carolyn for that position. On the other hand, Bathsheba was kind to Roger Perron. She loathed Carolyn but lusted Roger Perron.
She loathed my mother. She lusted after my father. Lusted.
I knew then that there was something. When you're standing there and somebody runs their hand against your back and you turn around and there's nothing there, you realize that there is something going on. And at that point, I started to put 2 and 2 together with the things that were happening to my wife.
My mother was never allowed to assume her rightful position as mistress of the house. That's the bottom line. We moved into that house as a mother, a father, and 5 children. And whatever the spirit was that taunted and haunted my mother so supremely over a decade was not willing to relinquish the position, essentially. What she did was treat my mother abominably. She loathed my mother. She lusted after my father. Lusted. I use that word deliberately.
Was mistress here before he came. And mistress here will be anon. Will drive you out with fiery brooms. Will drive you mad with death and gloom. If you don't leave, you will join us because she too will be dead.
There was some madness in that house, and it was a very penetrating force, and it was fighting to be the dominant force, and I think it was letting parents and children alike let it know that it wanted to be the dominating force, and I think we fought it tooth and nail for a long time.
Bathsheba was a witch and a practitioner of the black magic and was accused of killing an infant. In medical reports, and horrifying evidence was found that the base of the infant's skull had been pierced with something long and sharp. Many claim that this particular object was a sewing needle and was done as part of satanic black ritual. The locals believed that the baby had been used as a human sacrifice to the devil. Bathsheba died on May 25, 1885, 4 years after her husband Judson passed away. Many believe that she hung herself and her body literally turned to stone the minute she drew her final breath. Moving back to story, the hide and clap game played by ghosts inside the house is super spooky and harrowing.
Not my best friends, not anybody.
And then he started to talk about Bathsheba. She murdered that little baby. She drove a needle into its skull and killed it.
Worst thing in here is that doll. I'm not gonna stare at it though. So you can take the picture, but I'm not gonna stare at it because that has done bad harm on a lot of people. You have to conjure the spirits in order to get them. You know, you're not going to get them by just walking around.
The parents claim that the Bathsheba inhabited Carolyn's body to horrify them ferociously. Possessing Carolyn gave Bathsheba the power to cause the harm to family and take more control in the house. It left Carolyn feeling weak and emotionally drained. It's how the story came to the attention of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the paranormal investigators who helped turn the Amityville haunting into a household name. Parents claim that a family friend named Barbara went to the Warrens' lecture while they were giving a talk in Connecticut and told the family about the couple. After Carolyn allegedly became possessed with the spirit of Bathsheba, the parents got in touch with Ed and Lorraine Warren. The couple came to investigate, and Lorraine Warren claimed that the moment she entered into the house, she sensed a dark presence in the house. The Warrens cleansed the house and conducted a seance with Carolyn in the family's basement.
I didn't feel that spirits were really capable of doing physical harm to you, but I was wrong about that. I was wrong about that. There was real danger there.
Unfortunately, the seance was not welcomed by spirits in the house, and as a result did not go as planned, which made things much worse. The Warrens visited the Perron family intermittently throughout 10 years. Lauren claims that what happened in the basement disturbed her to the core and she doesn't want to discuss in detail publicly. Andrea Perron corroborates Lauren's story. She claims that she snuck into the basement to see the seance firsthand and was never able to look at her mother the same way again. According to Andrea, her mother began to speak a language not of this world in a voice not of her own. Her chair levitated and she was thrown across the room by some invisible force. Roger Perron claims that his wife was possessed by the spirit of Bathsheba. Her entire body was distorted and it lasted several hours until they demonized her. The Warrens tried to help, but things got worse around them. Concerning his wife's mental stability, they asked Warrens to stop further investigation and leave the house. So now question arises why this family was still living in that haunted house. According to them, they were not financially stable and it wasn't possible for the family of 7 to live out of the blue. The economy was terrible during that time. Andrea claims that the property value on their 200-acre farm was devaluing by the day and family would have been destitute if they had just walked away. In 1980, the Perron family was finally able to sell the house. They moved to Georgia and never looked back. According to Perron family, Bathsheba's curse is still haunting them and doesn't want to be exposed. Lauren Warren claims that she still feels traumatized by the events in the Perron house.